The galactic combat arena floated in the neutral zone between three star systems, a crystalline sphere where disputes were settled through ritualized combat. Orla, the Valkyrian champion, had never lost a match in her 7 standard years of service. Her exoskeleton gleamed under the plasma lights as she stepped into the preparation chamber, her 4 arms testing the weight of her energy pikes. "Your opponent arrives shortly," her handler buzzed through the translator implant. "Human. Designation Daniel Reeves. Military record classified. Current occupation archaeologist." Orla's mandibles clicked in amusement. An archaeologist. The arena board must be testing her with joke opponents now. Humans were a recent addition to the Galactic Council, barely a century since first contact. They were soft, small, slow by every measurable standard. Their only notable trait was an unusual stubbornness that others mistook for courage. The viewing gallery filled with representatives from 47 species, all eager to watch the Valkyrian demonstrate humanity's insignificance once more. The stakes were standard: territorial rights to a mineral-rich moon in disputed space. The humans had claimed it based on some obscure archaeological find. Foolish. Daniel entered through the opposite gate, and Orla's compound eyes focused on him with renewed interest. He was average for his species, approximately 1.8 meters, lean build, brown hair cut short. But something about the way he moved made her primary combat processor pause. There was no fear in his gait, no hesitation. He walked like someone who had made peace with death long ago. More curious was his weapon choice. The arena protocols were clear. Each combatant could bring one weapon from their cultural martial tradition. Orla had chosen her people's energy pikes, refined over millennia, capable of generating plasma hot enough to cut through ship hulls. Most opponents chose similar advanced weaponry: particle beams, molecular disruptors, gravitational shears. Daniel carried a sword. Not an energy blade, not a vibro weapon enhanced with quantum oscillators. A simple, curved sword of folded steel, roughly 1 meter in length. The weapon looked ancient even by human standards, its surface marked with the patina of age and the subtle discolorations of repeated use and careful restoration. "Attention competitors," the arena AI announced in its flat, universal translator voice. "This is a Level 1 dispute resolution. Combat continues until one party yields, is incapacitated, or expires. Medical intervention will commence immediately upon conclusion. You may begin on my mark." Orla activated her pikes, twin columns of contained plasma humming to life. She had fought humans before, 3 times in fact. They were predictable. They relied on aggression to compensate for physical inadequacy. She would let him charge, sidestep using her superior reflexes, and end it quickly. 3, 2, 1, begin. Daniel didn't charge. He stood perfectly still, the sword held in a 2-handed grip at his right side, blade angled downward. His breathing was slow, measured. Orla's thermal sensors registered his heart rate at an impossibly calm 68 beats per minute. She circled left, testing his reaction time. He pivoted smoothly, maintaining his stance. No wasted movement. His eyes never left her central mass. Orla struck first, a probing thrust with her lower right pike aimed at his midsection, fast enough to surprise most opponents but not her full speed. She wanted to assess his capabilities. The sword moved. It wasn't the frantic parry she expected. The blade rose in a precise arc, intercepting her energy pike at an angle. The plasma column flickered as the steel made contact, and Orla felt resistance, actual resistance, through her weapon's feedback systems. Impossible. Steel should have vaporized instantly. She pulled back and examined her pike. The containment field was intact, but there was a microscopic fluctuation in the energy matrix where the sword had touched it. Analysis, she subvocalized to her combat computer. Warning, opponent's weapon is coated with carbon lattice nanostructure. Thermal resistance exceeds parameters. Material composition suggests Earth origin, pre-industrial era, modified with molecular reinforcement. Age, approximately 800 Earth years. Designation matches ancient human weapon class, katana. 800 years old. The humans had brought a museum piece to a modern combat arena. Orla's confusion transformed into irritation. This was an insult. She launched a proper assault, all 4 pikes dancing in a pattern that had defeated champions from 17 different species. High-low combinations, feints and real strikes mixed seamlessly, attacking from angles that human anatomy shouldn't be able to defend. Daniel moved like water. The ancient sword flowed through defensive patterns that seemed to anticipate her attacks before they fully developed. He didn't just block, he redirected, using minimal motion to guide her plasma pikes away from his body. Each contact sent another ripple through her containment fields. Each movement positioned him slightly closer. Orla's combat processor screamed warnings. This wasn't possible. Humans didn't move this way. They weren't fast enough, weren't precise enough. Their reaction times were documented, tested, proven inferior. But Daniel wasn't reacting to her movements. He was reading her intentions, her weight shifts, the micro-adjustments in her stance that preceded each attack. He fought not with his eyes but with something deeper, some ancient human skill that predated their technology. She remembered fragments from the xenocultural briefing she'd skimmed before the match. Humans had spent 10,000 years killing each other before they reached the stars. They had refined murder into art forms, developed combat philosophies that treated warfare as spiritual practice. They called it martial arts, and they had practiced it for so long that it had written itself into their neural architecture. The sword was an extension of his body, and his body moved with the accumulated wisdom of countless generations of warriors who had studied a single question. How do you survive when someone wants you dead? Orla felt something she hadn't experienced in 7 years, doubt. She activated her exoskeleton's burst mode, channeling stored energy into explosive speed. This was her final technique, the movement that had won her championship. She became a blur of chitin and plasma, attacking from 6 angles simultaneously in a pattern specifically designed to overwhelm single-weapon opponents. The katana sang. That was the only word for the sound it made as it moved through the air, a high, clear note like a bell ringing across water. Daniel's form compressed and then expanded, the sword drawing a perfect circle through space. Every one of her pikes passed through that circle, and every one found only air where he had been a microsecond before. Then he was inside her guard. The katana's point touched the soft tissue beneath her primary carapace plate, the one vulnerability in Valkyrian anatomy, the place where their equivalent of a heart resided. Daniel held the position for exactly 1 second, long enough for every viewer in the gallery to understand what had happened. Then he stepped back and lowered his blade. "I yield," Daniel said quietly. Orla stared at him, all 4 of her eyes wide with confusion. "You won. Why do you yield?" "The sword touched you," Daniel replied. "In the tradition of this blade, the fight was over at that moment. I came here to prove we humans understand combat, not to kill you. The moon is yours. We found what we needed from it already." "What did you find?" Orla asked, her voice carrying genuine curiosity now, stripped of condescension. Daniel smiled slightly, a human expression that softened his warrior's face. "Proof that your species and mine share an ancestor from before the star-faring days. We're distant cousins, Orla. This fight was always family business." He turned and walked back toward his gate, the ancient sword resting on his shoulder. The gallery was absolutely silent, 47 species processing what they had witnessed. Orla watched him go, her combat processors still trying to model movements they couldn't explain through physics alone. She understood now why the arena board had accepted this match. It wasn't about the moon. It was a message to the Galactic Council. Humanity had arrived at the stars carrying their history with them, 10,000 years of warfare distilled into philosophy, refined into art, and preserved in folded steel. They didn't need energy weapons to be dangerous. They had never stopped being dangerous. They had simply learned to choose their battles. As the medical teams moved in to check both combatants, Orla made a note in her personal log. Recommend immediate reassessment of human threat level. Recommend cultural exchange programs focused on martial traditions. Recommend never underestimating them again. In the viewing gallery, the human ambassador smiled. The message had been received. Back in his preparation chamber, Daniel carefully cleaned the katana, a blade forged in 13th century Japan, carried by his ancestors through feudal wars, world wars, and finally into the stars. He returned it to its wooden scabbard and whispered the same words his sensei had taught him 40 years ago. The sword is only as sharp as the warrior's spirit. Humanity had passed their first real test in the galactic arena, not by winning, but by demonstrating that they understood something many species had forgotten in their rush to advance technology: the difference between violence and combat, between killing and warrior's honor, between savage and soldier. The arena AI logged the match results with a note that confused its programmers for weeks. Human victory through yielding. Paradox detected. Further analysis required. But there was no paradox, just a truth as old as the steel itself. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to sheath the blade.